Hi all Moonraker fans, Justin here from Moonraker in the UK. Wow, what a day it's been on 6 meters today. In actual fact, not just today, but yesterday as well. I posted on Facebook this morning a picture of DXmaps showing the QSO lines between the UK, Europe and Asia Pac. And it really was one hell of a day today. There were quite a number of VKs coming in. Lots of Japan, and Japan was coming in at sort of 90 degrees, so it was a skewed path, which apparently it was like that on the peak of the last cycle as well, on 6 meters for some reason. There was even some Korea that was coming in, some China and all sorts. Really good day. Obviously a lot of that was on FT8, but there is some transition thankfully now onto SSB and CW. So definitely the best time that you can possibly imagine to go on 6 meters and enjoy some very rare DX indeed. Now, what we're doing tonight? Well, one of the things that I had some comments on was on the DXmaps. Some people hadn't seen it or used it. So I'm just going to go over a few pointers and show you how to set things up on there and how to use it. You know, there's just some very simple steps and some flick throughs which you might find useful when you're looking to identify which bands to work and what time of day. So that's it, let's pop over to the PC. So just get myself seated and ready to go and open up on the Moonraker page first off. So let's go to DXmaps. I think with most browsers these days you can just type DXmaps, and if you've been there at all before, it will go straight to it. If not, then onto Google, which is most probably the case that you haven't been onto DXmaps before if you're having a look at this video. So this is what you would see when you first get there. You can sign in, sign up, log in, etc., and there are some features that will be available to you that wouldn't otherwise be available. Spots and such likes, and relevance to those spots from your locations. But for the purpose of this, I'm just going to go through and show you some of the basic functionalities on the maps in order that you can see how to get the most out of it. Now, because of the activity that I've been watching and doing, we're on the 50 megahertz at the moment, and what it does, it takes the QSOs from spots and from clusters, and it puts the lines, if you like, on here with a call sign at each end. So you can see that one call sign, or that's 2K2GS or 3B8FA in Mauritius, has been working 9K2GS. You can see the two call signs lit up. Now if I go up to 9K2GS, you can see that as well as the 3B8FA, he's also worked ZS6AF as well. As all those lights have lit. There is another station down here that has been working as well, which is the call sign hasn't lit up for. And it's the same for any of these. You can see here that EA6VQ in one of the Balearic Islands has been working into 3B8FA as well. So that gives you an indication on 50 megahertz. The useful thing with this is it does cover some of the remote or less used bands and some of the experimentals. For instance, on here you can see that you've also got 40 megahertz covered, and you can see that VE3WK has worked into G9PUF, and those are limited power bands as well. And why that would be useful for somebody that's a bit of a 6 meter fan is that obviously if things are hotting up on 10 meters and then 40 megahertz starts to illuminate, or 8 meters, then the likelihood is that it's going to be not far away before 6 meters is that way. So you can even go down as low on this one on 28, and you can see a completely different picture, lots of QSO lines in there. Now this is the same for in every respect. At the moment we're looking at the world. If you go on to the next one, you've got Oceania just around Australia. Asia is on the next map. South America, North America, Africa and Europe. Now you can see that this is cutting off rather a lot of stuff, but of course if you were on a more localized band, you know, it might be that you're on 144 megahertz on the bottom here. So when you go to North America, for instance, on 144 megahertz. Not a great deal of activity there at the moment, but that would be a much more regional specific map for you to have a look at. So you've got everything here: 222 for our friends in the US, 432 megahertz and 450 upwards that it would show activity on. But where it starts to become really useful for some of the other experimenters is when you go to, well, firstly we can go on all bands if we look at the world map, and then you've got just everything that's lit up on there. But we can go and look at satellite operation, where anyone that's using satellites is working. We've got FMDX, so that's typically going to be the 88 to 108 broadcast band. DAB, VOR, AIS, AIS being the automatic identification system for ships. Now I've used this one in the past myself for establishing when conditions are good or going to be good on 144 megahertz in the summer months, particularly, simply for the fact that this is on 161 megahertz, or 162, 161, just about there. So obviously if there are some lifty conditions on there, it's generally going to be the same kind of environment on 2 meters as well. So we've got these various different bits and pieces, plus a ticker here, and then also which is going to give information on what's going on as far as spots, information, etc, etc. And then we've got the expected MUF, or maximum usable frequency at any one time, and you can see it's fairly varied all over Europe at the moment, and that would change if you go to the world map, and then you can see Europe and the US, it's illuminated at the moment. Now when it starts to get a bit more interesting, and when you start to drill down into it a little bit more, we've covered some of these things, is when you look at some of the options here. In the pull down here on the modes and propagation types, you can select to see or not phone, CW, digital, WSPR, and then Aurora, Aurora E, backscatter, EME, sporadic E, etc. So if it's just one particular mode that you're looking at or you're interested in, for instance, if you're in Europe and you're on 50 megahertz, 10 meters, or 28 megahertz, and you want to look for real DX, then the likelihood is that real DX is going to be F2 only, maybe trans-equatorial, or I'll get it right in a minute, trans-equatorial propagation, or TEP. So then it would just be the TEP that would be ticked in the modes of operation, and no other. Well, I've deselected it at the moment, but so we can let's have a look here. We'd have to going to take all of those off to get it onto that way, but you can get the drift. You can pick whichever it is that you want to see. Some of the other options on here, only what's being seen on the DX cluster, or you can have a PSK reporter as well. So PSK reporter and well, if you go to only DX cluster, it's not going to have PSK, of course. Where else are we? You can have the grid squares with thin lines, so that will make it a little bit less prevalent on here, make you be able to see some of the other information. You can show call sign prefixes around the world. Makes it a little bit cluttered unless you zoom in a bit, because you can use the zoom button as well if you want to go down from a particular area or function. And then you can also have overlays like this. If we back again, now we can see the grey line. You can also introduce onto here the magnetic equator. So there's a hell of a lot of functionality that can be applied. If we take off the call signs again, and then we'll take off the prefixes, it kind of makes it a little bit less cluttered, and maybe then we can go back to add the call signs again. So that's a bit of a overrun here onto what you can do and some of the functionality on DXmaps. Hopefully that's useful. Do have a look around the site. It's worth logging in and signing up. You can support the site as well. There's a great deal of extra resources and information that can be viewed and seen, including some software such as login programs and so on. So if you like the video, do give us a like and follow for more interesting information and videos like this, hopefully. And if there's anything you'd like to see in particular or have us cover, we're going to be doing some product overviews and what would be considered useful information for typical hams that wouldn't necessarily be drilled down into a particular subject as far as their knowledge is concerned. You know, what's the difference between a vertical and horizontal polarization, for instance, apart from the fact that we tend to use vertical polarization for relatively short distance contacts and FM in particular on VHF, and the horizontal antennas tend to be on HF. Why is that? Or even 50 megahertz, for instance. And what are the shortfalls and downfalls of each and the benefits of each? Subjects like this that we can cover. So if there's anything that you want in particular that we're going to drill down into, let us know and we'll cover it off. So thanks very much for listening, and catch you on the next one. Cheers for now.